Isaac Asimov was born into a Russian Jewish family in 1920. He helped out in his family's Brooklyn candy store as a child, and was scolded by his father for wasting time reading science fiction magazines secretly. At 9, he typed his first story on a typewriter. It was rejected 27 times, and he mocked himself. Paper is more expensive than inspiration. At 15, he was admitted to the chemistry department of Columbia University. Professors disliked his heavy accent, and his experiments always blew up test tubes. Sighing, they said, "You're fit for writing novels, not touching flasks." At 19, he published his debut work Marooned Off Vesta and earned $25, so excited that he said to the Mirror, "At least manuscript effies don't explode." At 23, after obtaining his doctoral degree, he couldn't find a teaching position. Working as a civil servant in a naval shipyard, he secretly wrote the Foundation series on waste paper. At 28, the serialization of Foundation became a hit. When the editor pressed for manuscripts, he held his typewriter and said, "You won't betray me." At 32, married with children, he was still obsessed with writing. His wife complained, "Robots are closer to you than I am," and he replied, "At least they don't quarrel." At 35, he switched to full-time writing, publishing 17 books a year. When his assistant spilled coffee and stained the manuscript paper, he had a sudden inspiration and wrote The Caves of Steel. At 40, he published I, Robot and proposed the 3 laws of robotics, only to be mocked by peers. "This thing can't even manage a typewriter." At 45, his attempt at popular science failed and the books didn't sell. He used the manuscript effies to buy a typewriter and kept writing. At 50, diagnosed with heart disease, he refused to stop writing, working on Foundation and Earth while receiving an 4. At 60, winning the Hugo Award, he stared at the trophy and thought, "The one who truly deserves to be here is that typewriter." At 65, he underwent surgery to implant a pig's heart valve, mocking himself, "Now I have a science fiction heart." At 68, infected with HIV but hiding his illness, he insisted on writing until the last moment. At 72, on his deathbed, he dictated his last words, "Don't cry for me, my stories will never end."